All right, joining us is Ambassador Sanjay Panda. Ambassador Panda is a former Indian envoy to Turkey and Seychelles. Also joining us momentarily would be Professor Swasti Rao. She teaches at the Jindal School of International Affairs at Sonipat in the northern Indian state of Haryana, are joining New Delhi. Ambassador Panda, welcome to this special broadcast. Now, what can you tell our viewers joining us from India and around the world about Cyprus, its history, geography, and foreign relations?
Well, Ramesh, so far as Cyprus is concerned, since 1962, when it attained its independence, and even before that, we have had a very close relations with Cyprus. And it is at this point in time that we have realized the importance of forging, upgrading this relationship, taking it to the next level, and knowing very well that how important Cyprus is part of our strategic calculus. Now, historically speaking, since 1974, when Cyprus, there was this Turkish attack and the conflict between Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots, and then one third of its territory was actually occupied by Turkey and converted into TRNC, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, a separate entity which is recognized only by Turkey. So that's something which is illegal, and international community doesn't really recognize that. And India has stayed fast, remained by the side of Cyprus. And Cyprus has all along, because as we were listening just now, that it is a staunch believer in Gandhian principles. And so it has always been on the side of India. So it's a different story that we have not really taken this, although Cyprus, I believe, is a natural ally for India. We have not taken it to its logical conclusion, and now is the time that we have to take this relationship forward. And it's a good beginning because post Operation Sindoor, Cyprus figures in the first international visit of Prime Minister Modi after Operation Sindoor. And in diplomacy, it's very messaging is very important, and this sends out a very strong message to Turkey as Ankara, Islamabad nexus is actually, as we witnessed, has been directed against India. So much so that President Erdogan's statements, have really been not taken lightly by the Indian people. I'm not talking about the government, but the people. But at this point in time, with Cyprus, we have come to realize that it is very important. It figures prominently in our strategic calculus, and it also takes over the EU presidency next year. So from January 1, 2026. And Cyprus has always been supportive of India's position in any international, any international issue.
Indeed, since you referred to Cyprus's dispute, ongoing dispute, historical dispute with Turkey, Ambassador Panda, let me delve a bit deeper into the so-called Cyprus problem. Now, we are given to understand that India has consistently endorsed the solution of Cyprus issue based on UN Security Council resolutions, international law, and the EU acquis. Now, the EU acquis, we are told, refers to the body of common rights and obligations that are binding on all EU member states. It encompasses the entirety of EU law, including treaties, legislation, and case law, as well as declarations, resolutions, and international agreements. India also supports a bi-zonal, bi-communal federation based on UN resolutions as a solution to the Cyprus problem. Could you delve a bit deeper for the benefit of our viewers joining us from around the world?
So far as the UN resolution is concerned, there are several, very clearly defined how it was to work out, but then it has no significance for the simple reason as Turkey doesn't recognize it. Turkey has bypassed. If you remember, a few years back, I think it was in 21, when there was Turkey opened on the, there was something which UN had kept as an area which is neither the Turks or the Cypriots will have access. It's a buffer zone, and Turkey actually opened an access there. So Turkey has been defined the UN resolution on this, and so I feel that at this point in time, it is very important that Turkey gets isolated. But then you have to remember that Turkey is also a NATO member. So Turkey is also a NATO member. So now that puts things in a very difficult perspective so far as EU is concerned. But so far as TRNC is concerned, it's an entity. I won't call it a country because Turkey is the only country that recognizes it, and its relationship is only with Turkey. So I think so long as Turkey defies the EU principles as well as the UN resolutions on Cyprus and TRNC. So it really is not very significant at this point in time to delve into this. But so far as India is concerned, we have consistently advocated that dialogue and diplomacy is the solution to the Cypriot issue and the Cypriot problem.
Indeed, before we come to the substantive bilateral issues related to India and Cyprus, Ambassador Panda, since you referred to this geopolitical issue that's confronting much of the Mediterranean and the European Union in particular, now how would you describe Cyprus's relations with Greece and Turkey? We've spoken about Turkey, but what about Greece? We are told that Greece is also a party to the dispute, and how does that fit into India's ties with Turkey and Greece?
See, so far as Turkey is concerned, in diplomacy and in bilateral relations, what is very important that we have to be sensitive to each other's core concerns.
Right.
I mean, that is where Turkey has found wanting so far as India is concerned. It has not taken into account our core concerns. So far as Greece is concerned, there are countries, Turkey is of course strategically very important for us as a stepping stone into Europe, and it is located in the crossroads of Asia and Europe. So India has always valued its relations with Turkey, but Turkey has not reciprocated to the extent it should, so far as we witnessed very recently. So it has been India's policy now, at least now we have a clarity on how to handle this. And if you remember, when at the height of tension with Turkey previously, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has visited Armenia, and he had laid a wreath at the at the genocide memorial there, which Turkey has always contested. But that was a major symbolic response. And similarly, at this point in time, I mean, when in the Eastern Mediterranean, we have a lot of strategic interest. And at this point in time, when Prime Minister Modi is making his first visit post Operation Sindoor, it's a strong messaging which is going out to Turkey. But so far as Cyprus and Greece are concerned, traditionally the Greek Cypriots, the Cyprus that we are visiting and which the world recognizes, Greece has a very special relationship with Cyprus. And so far as India is concerned, both Greece and Cyprus are very closely part of our strategic alliance. You see, we talk about one of our major planks of our foreign policy is non-alignment. But now what has happened is, while we uphold the principles of non-alignment, it's time now to forge, selective strategic alliance. And I feel that it is important with countries with whom we share common, have common vision on global issues, and be it on terrorism, and which realizes and recognizes India's concerns, like Greece and Cyprus. So we have to build a special relationship. So far as Cyprus is concerned, its strategic location in the Mediterranean.
Hmm.
So when you're talking about the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, Cyprus potentially is a major hub. And recently, Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulides,
Bulletins.
when he visited Israel, he did make a reference to it and said how important it is to have India's support and support the IMEC. So that means Cyprus also recognizes that. Then energy, trade, investment, the whole lot of things. We are actually all set to have a comprehensive strategic partnership with Cyprus. So it's
In,
extremely important that both Cyprus and Greece, and that
absolutely.
is why it is important that we move forward. And we've taken the right step by the Prime Minister visiting Cyprus in his first international trip abroad after Operation Sindoor.
Indeed, well said, Ambassador. As you correctly said, in diplomacy, symbolism matters, perhaps more importantly than substance in some cases, and the PM can be expected to stay on message. The message